Hello students, welcome back to discussion of chapter 3. So we're talking about individuals and groups, information there about group influence of the geographic environment that you can read through. Social strata as well, just some definitions. Why is social stratification important? It's significant. I guess that social stratification of the society is significant if it affects the operation of business organizations. In cultures where there is a great deal of consciousness over the class of others, the way individuals from different classes work together, example, management and labor, may be prescribed and strained in some cultures like Britain, or have almost no significance in others like Canada, US, and even Japan to some extent. The caste system, good example of the caste system is India, where you are born into a caste, and it's basically almost impossible to change. Class system, Britain, Eastern United States is a good example of a class system. Class consciousness, condition where people tend to perceive themselves in terms of their class background, and this shapes their relationships with others. The mobility presented or permitted by culture affects whether individuals can move up in the strata and can limit the types of jobs and education available. In the US, individuals are very mobile, with the phrase, anyone can become president. In Britain, there's less mobility, and in the caste system in India, very little mobility. The next few slides talk about religion and how it affects culture and different ethical systems as well. Just some information here to read. Nothing. There might be a few multiple choice questions in terms of how many Christians there are in the world, 1.9 billion. Going over some of this material a little quicker because it's lots of reading in here. Some data to look at, definitions of Christianity and Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism. Let's go down to our discussion of language. Oops, why did that pop up? Language. As it says there, the language of society allows it to communicate, but also directs the attention of people towards certain features of the world and human interactions. A good example of this was the belief or the myth that in the Inuit languages they have 50 words for snow, and I'll put on a website that I found that basically discusses where that belief started and how relevant it is. I'm not sure if you've heard that, but they have so many words for snow, and it's, their language puts words together. It's a process called polysynthesis. So basically putting different words together creates a different word. Whereas other languages like English, we use adjectives to describe nouns, and so it's the same word, same noun with the different adjectives, and that describes a different concept of snow, for example. But it's just language makes it difficult in some cases to understand. And the early researchers had a difficult time understanding the importance of certain words in different languages, and they came up with their own kind of theories on how things were similar and different. So one of the benefits or purposes of language is it does help us describe how different people see the world. We can, even within Canada, we have different words. If I were to say the words bunny hug and Vico, if any of you are from Saskatchewan, you're going, wow, I know what that means. And if you're not from Saskatchewan, you're probably thinking I'm a little crazy for using those words, bunny hug and Vico, but we will discuss what they mean in class. So words have the power to bring people together, but they also can make it difficult to reach into a new group or a new culture, because language can put up barriers. Like right now, anyone not from Saskatchewan is wondering what the heck is he talking about when he says bunny hug and Vico. So it's becoming very awkward for all you non-Saskatchewanians to understand what I'm talking about, but don't worry, we'll get there. Some other concepts of language. Chinese is the mother tongue of the largest number of people. However, English is the most widely spoken language. It's a language of business. It's a language of international travel. Let's go down to this slide here. Education, this might be important for your first assignment, is, as we discussed earlier, looking at different aspects and factors of education. So we need to have a skilled and educated workforce if we want to succeed in a new market. Culture in the workplace. A lot of the material from this chapter will be spent on understanding this concept of culture and the work of Hofstede. He isolated 5 dimensions that he believes summarize different cultures. He studied various workers. He had over 100,000 workers from IBM, a computer company, from 1967 to 1973. And through that work, he identified 5 dimensions that can be used to summarize different cultures. We're going to look at more detail with the first 4: power, distance, individualism, uncertainty, masculinity versus femininity, and briefly talk about the long-term versus short-term orientation. Beginning, he isolated 4. It's grown to 5 or 6 different dimensions. So let's start with power distance. Power distance, this dimension indicates the extent to which a society expects and accepts a high degree of inequality in institutions and organizations. In a country with a large power distance, organizations are characterized by that very formal hierarchy and by subordinates who are reluctant to challenge their superiors, with the understanding that the boss is very much the boss. Power is a fundamental concern because human groups everywhere are organized into hierarchies, being defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of the society accept and expect power to be distributed unequally. It is more about the perception of power than the reality of it, and it has nothing to do with real power or wealth. Looking at some different scales with power distance, Canada, on a scale of 1 to 100, scores medium low, about 39. Philippines scores quite high in terms of 94. So high scores, you'd have that greater distance between boss and subordinate, or people with that perceived power. As it says there, some guidelines in terms of selling products. or conducting any type of advertising. So let's go into, there we go, individualism, collectivism. This dimension relates to the extent to which people prefer to take care of themselves and their immediate families rather than being bound to some wider collectivity such as the extended family or clan. In terms of organizational life, in a highly individualistic society, there will be sharp distinction between work and personal life. And it has a really good example of selling a product, say marketing consumer products will be more successful in groups of people if groups of people were in ads as compared to individuals if you were marketing that product to more of a collective society. Whereas an individual society like it is in the city of New York selling the new cell phone, you'd want to show how the individual is able to save time and money. But in places like China, you'd want to show a group of people benefiting from that new phone product. Uncertainty avoidance refers to the degree to which a society prefers predictability, security, and stability. In societies with high scores on this index, there is an emotional need for rules, written and unwritten. It refers to this is there the extent where we want different rules. What this means, you may categorize a culture based on the degree to which they avoid uncertainty. If a culture is very afraid of uncertainty, then they will create many laws, rules, and regulations to control people's behavior. On the opposite would be a culture that values freedom and has few laws because the people believe they can take care of themselves and are not uncertain, as it says there in that first paragraph. A good example this textbook uses is Texas versus Ontario, and I am puzzled as to where that would come in. Let's look at, there is this Hofstede's ranking, and let's just take out a couple of these countries here. We have Canada, United States. We're talking about uncertainty avoidance, and uncertainty avoidance 48 for Canada, 46 for United States, very similar. So I have no idea, and I'll look into this, what they're talking about, the good example between Texas and Ontario. Sure, Canada may have a few more laws and regulations, but there's no way that if this is implying that people in Texas believe that they can take care of themselves and are not uncertain. I don't know where this is coming from, but that is the uncertainty avoidance. Next slide talks about the gender dimension, masculinity versus femininity, and we will continue that in the next video.